Who here is this is your very first Founders Lab? Oh, got some newbies. Well, welcome. We always kick off the event with an interesting conversation or show presentation by, a local luminary in our circles. So we start kissing down Ken today about Pack Ventures. But before we get going, so we have some newbies to Founders Lab. Who here is a founder currently? All right. Who here is an investor? A couple, okay. Who here has had a successful exit? Nice, okay, got a couple. Who here is a UW alum? Oh, go Dogs. If any of you know me during Monday through Friday 9 to 5, I work at Seattle University, one of my alma maters. My other alma mater is, of course, the University of Washington, very close to my heart. I may have bragged a couple of you. I'm a third generation UW grad, and very proud about it. So I'm really excited to be sitting down with Ken today talking about
also a third generation UW grad.
Oh, look at us. Anyone here a third generation UW grad? Anyone a fourth generation? Okay, third generation club. We'll meet up after. I'll tell you the secret handshake. So we're going to sit down with Ken. He has an entire new VC venture around the UW ecosystem and awesome entrepreneurs and startups that are coming out of there. So I like to think of UW as, overlapping with the SU and general Seattle ecosystem. But Ken, what were you doing before Pack Ventures that kind of got you here? And then where did this come from?
Yeah, so immediately before this, some of you might know Venture Out Startups. And I was a co-founder of Venture Out with Sean Sternbach. And we were actually focused on building a new accelerator and another founder community here in town for people who are moonlighting at their startups and wanted to go full time. So we grew from 20 of us in a room drinking beer and having pizza to, I think we're over 1,100 or 1,200 founders, mostly here in Seattle. And a lot of those people are moonlighting. So they've got a day job, either Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and they're working on a startup on the side and trying to figure out how to get out of the big tech life and go startup. And then the 3 years before that, I was actually with Microsoft's venture fund. So I was our Venture Out customer, which was, hey, I'm at this big tech company and I'm trying to figure out how to go do a startup. And so that's what I've been doing the last couple of years here.
So what was it about the ecosystem that you were like, we needed a UW-focused venture fund?
Yeah. I mean, without a doubt, UW has some of the best talent in the whole world, not just the US. Whether you're looking at computer science, any of the engineering disciplines, this could be in the bio fields, the life science fields, we're already producing the talent that's working at the best companies in the world, that's building the next big companies in the world. And there's a lot of Husky alums here, and so you guys know you're probably working at some of those companies right now. And so that was the first thing. I personally think we go toe-to-toe on talent when you think about Stanford, MIT, Carnegie Mellon. We're right up there when it comes to the research institution. And then on the other side of that is, okay, how many resources do we have? And what is the university doing around this? And so a lot of people don't realize this, but last year, I believe it was, and most years, the U receives about $1.4 billion in federal research grant dollars. The only university that receives more than that is Harvard. We don't really talk about that as much here in the Northwest as you might hear from someone from Stanford or Harvard kind of shouting from the rooftops, right? And so you mix that with, and we have a bunch of faculty and staff here too, what we're doing with co-motion and licensing. We license more IP than pretty much any other university in the US. A lot of people don't realize that. And so we've got this absolute just engineering and research powerhouse right here in our backyard that is really the foundation of a great ecosystem for all startups and also a great opportunity for venture capitalists.
So what's your personal connection to UW? Now,
you
hung out there a little, what was it that made you keep coming back?
Yeah, so I also have a Seattle U connection. So I went to, I went to Seattle U for my first 2 years of undergrad. and I studied finance and philosophy. And so I tell people that philosophy taught me how to think, and finance is what I wanted to think about. And then I got into business school at UW, and so I transferred over to UW and finished out there before eventually coming back and going to business school there. And that was really part of the, my connection back to it was I actually started angel investing in a class at UW. So like the very first investment I ever made was as a student, alongside of a professor in the business school. And I just stuck with it ever since then. It was one of those, I hope all of you find this, I hope you found it with your startups because it's a beautiful thing. But I've had 2 aha moments in my life where it was just, I'm gonna be doing this for the rest of my life. And the first one was at a startup weekend in San Francisco in 2012. And we were building a Bluetooth-enabled bike lock that enabled peer-to-peer sharing of your bikes. This is in 2012, so you can now see how that works for Jump and Lime and all these other bikes. And then the second time was in this class at UW, where we were backing a bunch of local entrepreneurs, and I realized, yeah, this is what I'm going to do forever. And now I get to do it with UW.
I love it. Well, as a Seattleite, I am big on our Seattle startup ecosystem. I think we have a lot of really special things that if you're not from Seattle, you might not notice. But what is it? We talked about the research, the top tier schools, but beyond just the academics, what is it about Seattle that makes you want to build startups here?
Yeah. So one thing that I love about Seattle, it's a positive to a fault almost, is how humble builders are here. And I'm going to retell a story that's not as much mine to retell, but I was in a class last night on campus that had 2 founders. Their names are Mitchell and Armin, and they co-founded HashiCorp. Are people familiar with HashiCorp? Raise your hand. Okay, so these 2 founders just took that company public at a $16 billion valuation. It's one of the biggest tech, and especially cloud infrastructure IPOs in a very long time, if ever. They were 2 of the most humble people I've ever met, and they're both billionaires. And they're coming back to just a regular everyday class, sharing their story of here's what it was like to go through the tribulations of a seed round, and then through a Series A, and then through a Series B. And here's all the issues and problems we're still facing today. And there's just a level of humility with Seattle founders that I really appreciate. Now, on the flip side of that, when we were down investing in, through Microsoft and Silicon Valley founders, I knew probably in the first couple sentences that they went to Stanford or Cal. But then I heard some crazy ambitious way that they were going to change the world, and they actually believed they would do it. And that's a little bit of what I like to instill in the founders here is, I'm okay with you thinking you're going to do something audacious. And actually, I want you to think you're going to do that. And then let's talk about the ways that you're going to actually make that into a reality. And so that's one of my challenges, especially to students at UW, which is, hey, you're thinking a little bit too small here. What if this was 10 times bigger or 100 times bigger? What would change about the way that you're approaching this?
I love that. So tell me all about Pack Ventures. What's the structure? How do folks apply? Who are you engaging? What do we need to know to get in?
Yeah. So there's a couple things about it that you should know. All venture capitalists, we're kind of our own marketplace. So we're matching what are called limited partners, other investors, and we're matching them with startup investments, and we make the investment. And so the reason I bring this up is because both sides of that marketplace are really important to us. The first one is obviously we're investing in anyone who has some connection to the university. If you're an alum, if you're a current student, if you're angel investors who are alums, if you're advisors, we want you to have some connection to the university because we're supporting this ecosystem. But on the flip side of that, if you go to our website, you're going to see almost every single one of our investors on the website. And the reason for that is they want to help the founders that we back, and even some of the founders that we don't back. And I think this is what's cool about Pack and what we're doing in kind of like partnership with the university, is it's this first step outside of the university where we're bringing that network together that can really support founders through this whole process. And when you look at the investors behind us, you're going to see a lot of CEOs, you're going to see a lot of founders, you're going to see a lot of operators, people who can come in and say, hey, I have expertise in what you're trying to do, let me help you. So if you want to get involved, I think I'm one of the few VCs that my calendar is on our website. And you can book time, 20 minutes with me, right on the website. The second thing is I'll actually be on campus. And so founders who are working on a campus, you can connect with me live there, that way. I'm hyper responsive on LinkedIn, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And really, I love to have just the first conversation, 20 minutes of what are you trying to do and why, and paint some of that big vision for me, and then let's just dive into questions about, are you the right person to build this? Why do you think that? What is the strategy that you're putting in place?
I love that. One of the things I'm hearing that I would love to challenge all of our Seattle ecosystem members is reinvesting time and energy and resources back into our startup ecosystem. I know that I'm here because Nick started Founders Live. It really is kind of a waterfall moment that can be really exciting for folks. So I do want to give all of you a chance to ask Ken your own questions. Because of our tech setup, what's going to work best is for you to raise your hand when we call on you. But Ken, anything else we should know about you at Pack Ventures?
No, I'm just excited to connect with everybody here. So please do reach out. We have a way you can even submit your pitch on our website, and we talk with everybody. And so please, honestly, I know there's always been this disconnect in Seattle that I felt more here than I felt in Silicon Valley, where it's like, you're the VC and I'm the founder. I want to break that barrier. I want to grab coffee with people. I want to be in these kind of situations. And I want you to share ideas and be open to feedback, because that's how you're going to eventually land on the thing that you're going to build. And so please come say hi, connect with me.
All right. What questions do we have? Okay, just raise your hand. What question do you have? Just shout it out and people's
just curious about, Ken, are you looking at tech, life sciences, device, kind of what are the fields, the domains that you're interested in?
So the question was, what fields are interested in tech, etc. What kind of companies so forth?
Yeah, so we invest really broadly. Myself and we have a venture partner, Beth Polko, who's on the team, who's built a medical device company and done a lot of bio investing. We've got portfolio companies from consumer mapping all the way through to deep life science biotech deals. So it's more important to know where we don't necessarily invest. We probably would not invest in what we call a single asset therapeutic. So something where if you're going to come to me and say, I need $500 million to get through the FDA, we don't have that much money, sorry. And we also, we're looking for really high growth companies. So if you're opening a great ice cream store, a great clothing brand, that's going to be tough for us to probably back. That's not our expertise. And my background is in software, especially artificial intelligence, SaaS businesses, and marketplaces. So anything in that area, I would love to talk with you about.
Awesome. Next question. Chandler, what do you got?
I'd love to know if is there any efforts or any incorporation of trying to center, maybe historically marginalized founders or innovators in your investments?
So the question is, how are we integrating diverse founders, especially a range of racial identities into your?
This is a great question. So this is big for us. The one benefit, the tailwinds we have, is the university is roughly 30% first generation college students. And so we already have this incredibly diverse pool of people who are thinking of these innovations and bringing these forward. So that's one thing we're always focused on. The second thing is it's actually on the investor side. So most venture capital firms are pretty difficult to get access to, and they have really high minimum investments. A lot of times, if you want to invest in a venture fund, you have to invest $250,000, $500,000 to even participate. We specifically set up the fund so that we could take underrepresented LPs as well to come in and participate on the fund side of things and get involved with founders that way. So it's something we talk about like every week as we're looking at different deals and thinking about it.
See, time for 2 or 3 more questions. Who's got it? Right there.
How big is the fund?
How big is the fund?
Yeah, so we've already raised over $3.5 million. It'll be a $10 million fund. We've backed 6 founders so far, and the plan is to back 12 to 15 founders every year.
Right. Yes.
What stage are you investing in? Like, what is the condition of the companies that you're investing in?
So Julia asked, what stage companies are we investing in?
Yeah, for the most part, we're pre-seed and seed, and we're typically investing alongside another VC, but we're happy to help facilitate the connection to another VC and make that work. So people say, well, what's pre-seed and seed? I don't need you to have a bunch of revenue. In fact, I might not need you to have any revenue, but I need you to have traction. So something that says this is beyond an idea, and this is beyond something on a piece of paper. I've talked to my customers. I have beta list signups. I've talked to potential customers that are going to buy this, 2 years down the road if they're working on something deeply technical. We really have a penchant for founders who aren't just building, but they know how to talk to potential buyers.
That's right, all the way back.
So you already mentioned that you deal mostly in tech and fast growth startups. If we're building a company that's not a fast growth startup and still deals in tech, but more in industrial automation and physical things, factories and manufacturing. When I go online and look for funding options and avenues, it's just in all these fast tech. Everything else online is fast tech. How do we find alternatives for different kinds of businesses?
So the question was, if you are not a high growth tech founder, how can you access early investments for your business and support researches?
So there's a number of different ways that you can do this, and it really depends on your business and the business model. The first one is through angel investors, who have a very different return profile than we do and have a very different time horizon. A bunch of different angel groups in town that I recommend. There's Alliance of Angels. I actually interned for Sea Change Fund for 3 or 4 years. And they can participate and be part of that first, let's call it $1 to $2 million to kind of get you going. And then once you've grown out of that, depending on the structure, there's so many different vehicles that can be used. If you have some type of recurring revenue, there's lighter capital in town and a few other revenue-based financing models. Or you could go kind of the bank route, which honestly, then you own more of the company, which is kind of nice. It really depends on the specifics of the company to say, you should go talk to this firm or that firm.
Maybe let's zoom out real quick. What is the difference between, say, an angel investor and your VC fund?
Yeah. So angel investors are going to personally invest their own money, and this will be something between $5K and $100,000 typically, and they don't have to worry about the full fund overhead, the full fund fees, and the structure of returns. And so if they're using their own money, I personally would like to return 2 or 3x, 200 or 300% of my own money in a couple of years. That would be a great investment. But when we think about funds, we're taking really highly risky investments. Things where if it works, it's $1 billion company. But if it doesn't work, it's 0. And so we intentionally are taking much more risk in the funds. And we model out, 33%, half of these we're gonna lose all the money we invest. Which then means the rest of them have to make a ton of money. That's why we always, when people say, hey, what's the difference between angel and VC? That's why VCs get pigeonholed in a very specific type of companies, because they have to think about, will this return 10, 100, $1 billion to my particular fund?
Time for 1, maybe 2 more questions. Mike Ross.
So how will you be different from the legacy VCs in Seattle that they have some sort of antiquated idea of how to start a successful startup, kind of grow it?
So the question is, how are you different from the same old VC companies that maybe have had the same old...
Mike's trying to get me in hot water.
He always is.
So we do work with all of them. The other thing is, Beth and I both come from a Silicon Valley focused model. So she went through Y Combinator. Most of her investors were from Silicon Valley. M12, we are headquartered in Silicon Valley. And so we've got a very different perspective on how you back a founder and what that means when you do. And so we're trying to intentionally be available, which I think has been something that's been more difficult here in Seattle. It's sometimes been hard to get a hold of the venture capitalists. And the other thing is, we're putting a lot of mentorship and support behind the founders that we back through our network of LPs. So we hope that's going to separate us as well. But honestly, we end up working a lot with them anyways. But we make decisions pretty quickly. It's usually in like a 2 to 3 week time frame. Well, is that right? How quick were we? Okay. And then we try to be, helpful with mentorship after that.
Awesome. Okay, last question. What do we got?
Me?
Yep.
So outside of revenue, which I really appreciated you saying, what would you say the top 3 metrics are that you look for?
So top 3 metrics besides revenue.
Yeah, so if you're going to be a consumer type of business, you better know how to generate demand. So this could be beta signups, this could be beta users, this could be web page landings, something that says, I actually know how to go attract thousands, if not tens of thousands of people, and now I just need some rocket fuel to do that. If you're in the enterprise SaaS realm, I need you to be able to demonstrate that you know who the buyer is and that you can go talk to them, and that those people actually have shown a propensity to buy what you're selling. So this could be a letter of intent. This could be a proof of concept. It doesn't necessarily have to be binding. It just has to show, like, I got to the person who's going to make the buying decision on this software. That's pretty impressive for VCs. If it's deeply technical, then I'm really leaning into your technical chops. I still want you to be able to talk to a customer, right? And I've had founders recently where it's a deeply technical product, and I've kind of sent them on quote unquote homework and said, I want you to go talk to 3 buyers and come back and tell me what you've learned. But I'm probably making more of a bet on your intellectual property, your patents, and the underlying technology there. And so having a robust plan for that helps.
Awesome. Well, we are at time. Thank you, Ken, for hanging out with us this evening. Big round of applause for Ken. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.